Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Psicoactivo. Today's episode, I guess, was a long time coming because yesterday I spoke about Drew Bledsoe and how he described quantum entanglement between human minds as something really normal when it's supposed to not exist. And you guys know that my investigation has taken me to talk about this, how Dr. Jacobo Grinberg was about to prove this in 1994 and then he disappeared. Okay, so I'm going to show you a picture right now. In this picture, you can see we have at least two familiar faces from the UFO community. They're unmistakable. One of them is author John Keel, who famously wrote The Mothman Prophecies and Operation Trojan Horse. The other one is even more familiar to everybody. It's Dr. Jacques Vallée, who is one of the most important ufologists in human history. He's the French character in Close Encounters of the Third Kind is based on him. So he knows a lot of stuff. But this picture that I confirmed is from Costa Rica, a conference in Costa Rica in 1994, just months before he disappeared. I think it was November or something like that. In the bottom right, we have Dr. Greenberg, who was sitting on the same table as the other two. But in the far left, this face, I was talking to Red Panda Koala once, and he was like, yeah, that's Andrija Puharich. And I found it really surprising, because I didn't recognize him at first. And I always struggled to pronounce his name, Andrija Puharich. I think I do it okay now, but this is one of the most famous and most consequential parapsychologists in American history. He was literally everywhere, but he wrote 3 books that are deeply important to all topics related to parapsychology, but he was really focused on a specific niche with each book. So the first one is The Sacred Mushroom, which was written in the 50s, and he essentially tries to reach altered states of consciousness in order to allegedly communicate with non-human entities through psychedelics, through the mushroom called Amanita muscaria. He was always a man who was thought to be thinking outside the box at all times, and he was very instrumental to bring in Uri Geller, who was a famous psychic from the 70s and 80s, to study him in different universities in the US. And he also, which is the reason I'm making this video today, I just found from a YouTube channel called Esoteric Eddie. Shout out to Esoteric Eddie. I found a text and proof that Andrija Puharich at least knew about Greenberg because he was treated by Pachita. You guys know Pachita. She was the shaman who is the main case and the main study of Dr. Jacobo Grinberg's books about shamans. And there's a text that I'm going to read to you guys about Andrija Puharich talking about Pachita in one of his publications. Here it goes. I was not hypnotized before the operation, nor was any medication given. I lay down on the table, holding the knife in her right hand. Pachita quickly inserted 3 inches of the knife blade into the right ear canal. The foreigner of her left hand guided the blade in. The pain was acute, yet I did not scream, nor try to avoid the knife. Even though it felt as if the tip of the blade had penetrated the eardrum. As soon as the knife was withdrawn, however, the pain stopped. He went on to say that about a week later, after the operation, and after a few days of intense ringing in his ears, the noises decreased gradually, and by the eighth day after the operation had ceased altogether. In fact, my hearing was now so acute that I suffered painfully from hyperacusis, which is the abnormally increased power of hearing. This condition lasted for about 2 weeks. 1 month after the operation, my hearing was completely back to normal. We're talking about Andrija Puharich having a debilitating condition on one of his ears, and he needed surgery. And he decided to go to Pachita when he was working in Mexico, because he worked in Mexico too and lived there for a while. And this is the description of how he was cured, allegedly, by Pachita. What I want to know is how much Puharich and Dr. Greenberg cross paths, because I think it's very interesting. Unfortunately, Puharich passed away in 1995, which was 1 year or months before Dr. Greenberg disappeared. And I don't know, I think his name is the one that is one of the most common, that is in one way or another associated with Dr. Greenberg. He's the fifth name that I can successfully tell you that they at least knew of him, or knew him very well. And I'm dying to know, because unfortunately Puharich is no longer with us. John Keel is no longer with us, but we still have Dr. Jack Valet, we still have Dr. Hal Putoff, and we still have Russell Tark, Dr. Russell Tark, who is the other name that I found that is in some way related to Dr. Greenberg's work and what he did. And just as one last part that I want to share with you, there's one of Dr. Greenberg's most advanced students is Dr. Jose Luis Bueno, who recently appeared on a podcast in Spanish talking about new experiments that I had no idea were being conducted by both Dr. Greenberg and Dr. Jose Luis Bueno. And he described, because he was having anxiety attacks, and when he recently found out about the doctor, he went to UNAM, which is the Autonomous University of Mexico in Mexico City, and he was looking for the doctor because he was recommended by someone that he could help him with these anxiety attacks that he was having. And when he arrived looking for the doctor, he ended up at a classroom with 400 people on it during a lecture of Dr. Greenberg. And he was teaching meditation techniques and stuff that he had learned in his many trips. He went to Israel, he went to India, he went to a lot of places to learn this philosophy and this information for his psychophysiology studies. And Dr. Jose Luis Bueno developed a relationship with him, a working relationship. And then there was a certain moment when Dr. Greenberg told him about a convention for studies in these areas, and he couldn't attend the convention, but he trusted Dr. Bueno enough to tell him if he could go on Dr. Greenberg's behalf. And Dr. Bueno accepted. So when he went there, he went to a place in Boulder, Colorado, which is essential to understand Dr. Greenberg's story, because that's where he was spotted after he disappeared. Lieutenant Clemente Padilla from Mexico, who was the lead investigator in the case, he was the one who revealed that there were reports of a man fitting exactly Dr. Greenberg's description who arrived at an airport, and he was picked up by two men in black. And there were other two women with him. One was his wife at the time, and the other one was a blonde woman that was always with the wife. And then it was later assumed that these two women were part of the intelligence community. And Dr. Bueno went to Boulder before Dr. Greenberg disappeared, and everybody, as soon as they knew that he was one of Greenberg's associates, they started treating him like royalty almost. And they gave him a lot of books, a lot of articles to read for Dr. Greenberg. But there was a moment during this time when Dr. Bueno was approached by a man in a suit who seemed strangely elegant, according to Dr. Bueno. And this man started talking to him, and he started asking him about experiments that they had been doing in private at UNAM. Nobody knew about these experiments but like two or three people. And this person, American, started talking about these experiments that involved lasers and trying to apply the transfer potential in quantum entanglement with these lasers. I don't know many details about them. I'm trying to speak to Dr. Bueno. I hope I can talk to him over the next month or so. He's already responded to me, so I have high hopes that I can talk to him. He was like one of his last students of Dr. Greenberg, so I have high hopes for what he can tell me, because the stuff he revealed. So when he was at this place and he was approached by this agent of some agency, and then he realized that he instantly assumed that everything was bugged over at the laboratories at UNAM. But then he started saying more details that were impossible for him to know. So he got really spooked and he started getting like flustered. And this person was like, no, 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 calm down. We're on the same side. We're the good guys. I want you to tell Dr. Greenberg that we have everything he needs in order for him to continue his investigation. We know that he's not valued as he should be in Mexico, and we value him. So we want to help him. And then this agent gave Dr. Bueno an envelope. And Dr. Bueno, obviously, he was very inquisitive and very curious to which agency this man belonged to. And he asked, he was like, "Are you CIA?" And this man, according to Dr. Bueno, said, "No, that's too vulgar for us. We're something different. We're making a higher level type of investigation," which sounds kind of snobby to me. And if I tell you who kind of says that or behaves that way, I would say it's scientists. That's just how I think I see it. I'm not saying it was any of the people that I've mentioned here, but it is interesting that there's this agency that is unnamed. It's not the CIA, and they think the CIA is vulgar. That was a surprise to me. I know there are many infightings between agencies over the decades. I don't know details about that. I wish I knew, really. But I think it's really interesting that this Dr. Bueno was approached. And then Dr. Bueno says that when he saw Greenberg and he gave him the envelope, his demeanor changed. He became more serious and like kind of shocked. So I don't know what was on that envelope, but I think that Andrija Puharich was an essential part of whatever Dr. Greenberg was also discovering and doing, because these books that he wrote another book called Beyond Telepathy, which has a very interesting theory of how telepathy works. Andrija Puharich says that in order to manifest this skill, in order to transmit, you need to be in a state of joy, kind of like arousal or joy. And in order to receive a certain frequency, you need to be in a state of more calmness and relaxed and no noise, And I find that extremely refreshing due to how simple it is, and it kind of makes sense to me. Not that I know a lot about telepathy, but I know I have experienced it once, and it was like that. When I was more relaxed, as I was having this experience with two other people who were also adults, and we were 22, 23 years old each, I noticed that whenever I wanted to hear something, I needed to calm myself down. And when I wanted to say something, I needed to be like more euphoric. That's how I can describe it. And I think that Puharich makes a lot of sense and clicks a lot of the boxes that I have for this experience that I had with telepathy. But the question remains, what the hell happened to Greenberg? Why is his work not being taken into consideration if I consider it so important? And the people I've talked to consider it that too. And I just don't understand why not a lot of people from the scientific community today knows about him. And you can say it's a language barrier. If you're a serious scientist, you know everyone around the world who is doing an investigation similar to yours, even if you don't speak their language. That's just how the scientific world works. Everybody's aware of everyone. So, especially right now with the internet and all that, and the ways of communication we have. So, that's not a good excuse for me. It's just trauma and argument. But yeah, I'm gonna keep asking questions. I want you guys to please let me know what you think about Andrija Puharich. What you think about this new revelation that he was operated on by Pachita. It was probably when he was living there, and what happened if he met with Greenberg. What did they talk about? I want to know that, So leave your comments. If you find value on this video, please like, share, subscribe. It's really helping out the channel, and let's keep the algorithm liking our stuff. So without further ado, have a good one. Bye-bye.